Good evening, everybody. Hope your Wednesday's gone very, very well. I'm delighted to be joined by my lovely co-host, Oli Mann, from the excellent Sheff United Way. He's battling on Chris Basham style, not in the bloom of health right now, but you're still willing to fight it out anyway, mate.
Yeah, got to do what you can. You've got to show up on a Wednesday. If you're not coming for EFL debate, then what's the point? But yes, as you've referenced yourself, I am battling COVID at the minute. And so if anybody thinks I look a little bit bedraggled, please don't judge me for it today, because I'm not
No,
myself.
I don't think anyone noticed it, to be honest.
Oh, cut me deep immediately.
Sorry, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Johnny, delighted to be joined by Jonny Bullock from the Boro Breakdown. How are you, Johnny?
I'm very good, gents. It's always a pleasure to see you too, and obviously Ollie. You look fine, mate. You ignore Gab. You take the compliments from me, mate. How handsome as always. Gab, you look all right yourself, but you can't go for Ollie like that.
Yeah, you tell him. Yeah, thank you, Johnny. Thank you.
Brilliant. So, Johnny, how are you feeling about Boro's playoff prospects at the moment, mate?
Very positive. Very positive. Even when we're in the depths of despair, and when Ollie was rinsing me for being bottom of the league, still believed, and I'm coming back, and we're doing all right again, aren't we? And yeah, I still feel confident, Gab. I really do. I think we've got a squad good enough. I still think we need to add to it, but we're picking up points all the time now, and we're slowly starting to get into a really good rhythm. And you're going to have bad results on you, but I think overall, still feel quietly confident. I think.
I've got a request actually, Gab, if that's all right, because Johnny's referenced it there, and just do you know in future, can we only book him when they've lost? Is that all right? Can we? Because he keeps coming on when they've won, and he gets me every time.
No, to be fair, I think you did have me on when we were like bottom of the league, and it was rough. So I think you got me on the worst, like I mean, really nearly best.
It's only fair we let you enjoy it, because obviously on a fantastic run, and obviously beating Leicester, that's got to feel pretty good.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely, it's class, isn't it? I think when I watched Leicester though, and I've watched like Southampton as well, like both teams, they haven't it sounds odd, but they haven't really blew me away where I thought they really would. I think Southampton is starting to get in a bit of rhythm now, and I feel like Leicester are just edging games, and yes, they're looking good, obviously top of the league, and they have a squad which is probably one of the best championship squads I think I've ever seen, and to get a good result, and it was a different side of Boro as well to get the result as well, a much more solid unit controlling the game without the ball, which we haven't seen under Carrick, and to get something, and the way we did it as well, it's always a sweet when something goes top bins like that.
Absolutely. How much of a confidence booster is it going to be for the rest of the season to beat a side like Leicester and get a clean sheet, where maybe in the last couple of games, I think against Stoke and Plymouth Argyle, the defensive issues from the start of the season for Boro were starting to creep in again?
Yeah, we started to put those right goal, Gab. That was the annoying thing against Plymouth and Stoke, and we kind of threw those games away. I think Stoke we were comfortably beaten. I thought Stoke were a much better side, deserved to win, nullified it, and Alex Neil just always gets a result over us. And the Plymouth game again, conceding worldies. I just don't know what it is. If you could watch Middlesbrough this season, it's like a highlight reel, where people just score from 30-40 yards or hit one top bins, and you're thinking, when will this ever happen to us? And we finally.
I often feel though, Johnny, like it's because no one's closing them down as well.
Yeah, there is that as well. But around our box, fine. Defending around our box, yeah, it was pretty sound, but just these efforts just keep happening, and you think, well, what can you actually do to some extent? Yeah. But confidence-wise, yeah, you can see it. I think it's just slowly starting to build again, and the players are starting to get used to what Carrick wants from them now, and yeah, things are getting better and better.
Yeah, I know we've had similar to that before, Johnny, where you do feel as though every shot against you is going in, don't you? They're just sort of 25 yards. These are never going in, and they find top corner, bottom corner.
17-18 season, I think, was a bit like that for Blades. A bit the year before you went up into the Premier League.
Yeah, it was just like that. And I do think it comes down to, and I think it is space through midfield. And I think that was what I always sort of, at the time, you don't reflect on it. But looking back on it, I can see the changes United made. We brought in Norwood. We brought in a couple of more front foot defensive players, shall I say. And so suddenly you see the space getting closed. They've got less time and space to pick their spots. So I do think players at this level, championship, usually are going to find a shot if they've got that time, got that space to pick it. So I know you're saying they're defending quite well around the box, but do you think there's something in that? Maybe the midfield needs to be a little bit smarter in terms of not giving as much time, or do you really just think it is a random one where eventually variations are going to go in your favour?
I think it's more of a random one. I really do, there is a couple of goals. I think, obviously, I'm thinking about West Brom, really, is the one where I think we should have closed them down and got a lot better. But when I'm thinking Andre Dazzel's goal for QPR, I'm thinking Wesley Hout's goal against Watford. And, I'm just looking at the games. I'm thinking, what can you do? Like, some of these shots are like 1 in a million shots and they're going top bins. And you think, well, and I felt for De Jong at that point. But overall, I think we are pretty sound. We don't give much away, which is the strange thing. We don't really give that much in terms of chance creation away or whatever. But I think it's more of the latter in terms of we've just been unlucky. But I'll share the highlight reel and you can make a decision for yourself. But it's pretty depressing, like you're saying, Ollie, where they're going top corner and you just think there's nothing you can do, right, as a fan. So
I suppose also every goal you concede, there's probably 1 or 2 things where you think this player should have been there and this player should have been there, and sometimes you can microanalyze it to the nth degree, but on the sometimes there is a variance factor as well.
Yeah, there is, and like obviously it's the third pass before the actual goal, isn't it? That is meant to be the one where you tend to see that biggest problem lies. So I probably have to look back at some of them, but I think we're just unlucky. And defensively at Boro, I've been questioning the Carrick for a while. And I think last year it was more of a case of we'll try and outscore you, and we had the capability to do that. And I think Ollie will see now with Archer, like, of how good he can be. And with this year, it's a little bit different. We're not as clinical going forward, so we have to create a lot more chances, and it's have to rely on us being more defensively sound. So it's a work in progress, and we will be probably for the most of the season, but we're just picking up points here and then. I still feel confident in what we're doing and where we're going, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we will be in that playoff picture.
Obviously, January's on the horizon, Jonny. You mentioned that you still need to strengthen the squad. What do you think is going to be required in January?
Yeah, how long's a piece of string? I think we could always add to it.
How long's your piece of string, Jonny?
I think we need a striker, another midfielder, and probably it depends on who goes in January. McNair's out of contract in the summer, so he could be potentially sold in January. How many players do we want to give out on loan? And, do you want to rely on Josh Coburn for the rest of the season, or would you think he's more beneficial going to Plymouth? So you could maybe look about 3 or 4.
Well, he's already scored goals at home back, hasn't he?
Well, he has, and he was great at that as well. And he's slowly coming to his own a little bit now. And watching him more and more, he's getting a lot more savvy in his play. Just like even like little things where the ball comes up and he's like leaning back into the defender, then taking that step forward to create the foul, and just like little things like that. You know what I mean? Where you're thinking, oh, you're slowly adding to your game again. So it's how much you want to rely on Coburn, but also we just need a bit more depth here and there, because we do have a bit of an injury list, and we'll see how it goes, really. But yeah, about 3 or 4, I think, Gab.
Do you think you'll bring in a striker and keep Coburn potentially?
There's always the option, isn't it? Like you'll have him, like Laugh, and another centre forward would be good. I think Coburn needs game time, so I would risk letting him go out on loan to maybe Plymouth, because it was a done deal, wasn't it? He was pretty much gone, and then we just couldn't get that replacement in. So if we can bring someone in or 2 players in, then I would let him go out loan for sure.
Is it for you? Do you think loan market? Obviously, that's where you did so successfully last year. You brought in fantastic players who really sort of elevated the level of the squad to get you right up, not just in the playoff picture, but in the automatic promotion picture, albeit sort of to a limited degree. Do you think that's going to be the same market again? Do you think you're looking at sort of top level loan players to come in and really elevate the level of the squad?
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got to look at a couple of loan players, I think. Because it's a gamble sometimes, isn't it, bringing in someone on a permanent in January window. We have done it in the past and it's been successful, and we've had some good loans though as well, like you're mentioning there, already, like around like Archer and Ramsey last year. We had Gaston Ramirez when we got promoted, where he came and just completely changed our season. And
do you remember that goal he scored in the I think it was probably the relegation season, the year after? I can't remember who it was against, but he sort of ran Bournemouth. Was it Bournemouth? Yeah, it's not the whole way, halfway the pitch. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was incredible. He just had decided to throw his wife under the bus in terms of like trying to message other girls. You know, it was a real tough time for Ramirez. If you haven't heard that story, but yeah, essentially a lot of off the field stuff, should we
Okay,
say?
right,
When you're a married man and there's other people in the picture.
of
You
course,
can
yeah,
put the pieces together from that. So he obviously mysteriously went back and moved on. But yeah, we need someone to galvanize. I think is this probably the route we'll go down. I think
sure.
Archer, Ramsey, Ramirez, players like that can really push over the line, isn't it? And we just need that extra bit of quality, I think, in the
Mm.
final third. And also, what can we do to make us a bit more defensively sound in that midfield role? Because O'Brien's going to be a while. You've only got Hackney, Howson, and Barlaser.
Barley.
So, yeah, one more there. And
He's defying a few doubters, though, from what I can gather, Barlaser.
yeah, he's brilliant. Man, I love him. I genuinely love him. It's just like when Hackney's playing so well, you probably won't get that position. But Howson has these games where he looks really, really good, and you think, "Oh, I can't not drop him." But I would like to see more than Balassa. I really would. He's just got all the quality there, hasn't he, with his passing range? So it just depends how. I think it'll depend on who we play, where Balassa comes into the pitch. I think he couldn't have really played against Leicester, to be honest, because we were never going to get much of the ball. So it wouldn't have made much sense. So depends who we play, really.
Ollie, Johnny's mentioned there that you've got Lewis O'Brien to come back, who's an incredibly tenacious midfielder. I think Darrell Lenihan's been injured. He's always a top end championship defender, and we both know Chris Wilder likes him from
Loved
that
him.
League of 72 feature. So certainly he's. I think he can be a real linchpin. Do you think that with those kind of players who are real kind of mentality monsters, if you like, coming into what's already a really fun, exciting squad, that Boro could end up with a really exciting mix in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I do. I think it could set them up really nicely, actually. And I think we saw that Boro do tend to be a team that come on strong. We know that, and we know what Carrick can get out of sort of this squad of players when they get on a roll. We've seen it already, and I do think it should be a really exciting second half of the season for Boro. I think, obviously, much like last season, it's too late to be really looking at sort of getting there automatically, which I know I myself had predicted for you at the start of the season. But no, I do think that you're in a really nice spot for automatics. I do think you need some more legs. I think you need a striker, because I do still look at the squad, and I know that we've got brilliant players in there. I really like Riley McGree, but I know he's out at the minute. I like Lati Lath. Obviously, he looks a real talent, but I still struggle to say who's going to score enough goals to be the Akpom, to be the Archer replacements. I still just think that's what's missing. So that's what I want to see. I think they have got an exciting core, and I don't think as many as Johnny. I think they probably need one. I think they need one really good and up front, and I think that'd be enough for me to give them a really good chance in the playoffs over 90 minutes against anyone.
I'll take that. I'll take the one sign.
You'd
Definitely.
take the one.
Yeah, of course you would. If you get a really good centre forward, and it can definitely change. Like I was saying there, that linchpin or that one player that takes a season to the next level, doesn't it? But I think what the difference has been this year in comparison to maybe last year was just you've got a few players now who are chipping in with the goals, like Greenwood's on 4, Corber's on 4, Crooksey's
Greenwood, I
on there.
really
Like
like, actually, to
Greenwood.
be fair. He's such a selfless runner, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And there's that as well. So like I think if the goals come from different areas, it gives a team another problem to think about, and that's all football, isn't it? It's just a number of problems in a team, and if you can create plenty of them, you probably win more games, right? So but yeah, I think we're looking good. But I do agree with you, Ollie. We just need something that probably pushes over the edge.
Well, let's hope you can get it. Talking of Middlesbrough strikers, I do want to, before we let you go, Johnny, bring in Joe Bell from Argyle Life. Wondering if you reckon Argyle would fancy Josh Coburn in the second half of the season.
We fancied him about 8 weeks ago, Gab, 9 weeks ago, whatever it was, let alone towards the second half of the season. I liked him. I really liked him last year at Bristol Rovers. I thought he was a really, really good centre forward, even in League One. And it was clear that that's where the recruitment team had saw him. We'd seen it firsthand. His introduction changed the game in October last year, and actually was one of the bright points towards a pretty disappointing second half of the season for Rovers, you'd probably say. So they went all out to get him in the summer. They had their fingers burnt somewhat by Boro for that, and it left us a little bit short. But I thought he was brilliant on the day down here a couple of weeks ago in a really balmy game of football. Whether or not we get a chance to get him back in January, I don't know. Presumably Boro will have to strengthen themselves before there's any chance of that. And even off the performances he's put in so far, he's probably a fair player to keep around the building. So maybe we've missed out on our chance, but he's some player. We've got a good eye for players, Gab. It has to be said.
Just the question of getting them in.
Yeah, that's the other problem.
Yeah. Jonny, thanks so much for your time. We absolutely love your stuff on the Boro Breakdown. So it's always lovely to chat to you, mate. And thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Lovely to see you as always, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, guys.
Cheers,
mate. So Joe, coming to you from Argyle Life, obviously, just wanted to ask you how you feel Argyle are sort of settling into the second tier after, first sort of 3 months in there.
Yeah, I think we're all a little bit more positive after that block of fixtures in between international breaks than we were perhaps even after the first block, because it ended in pretty dire circumstances. That last block of fixtures, we got the pummeling by Swansea after being in front for an hour, and we dominated Millwall and got punished for not taking our chances, and it was all a little bit doom and gloom. And then Shuey talked about a reset going into this mini block of fixtures, Gab, and it's really paid off for him. I think the performances have been really strong. Once again, we're not being put away by teams on the road. We seem to always come out on the wrong side of these tight 1-goal swing games. So that'll have to change in the long run. But I said it before the Leeds game that nothing surprised us about this level. If you make mistakes, you're going to get punished. In League One, some of the mistakes that we've made in games we perhaps might have got away with. But it's a young group. They're learning on the job every time. I mean, I was just talking to a friend of mine on the phone there on the way home from work that it's slightly ironic that Leeds' 2 goals on Saturday came from 2 defensive mistakes. And actually, all the times that they played through us and cut us open, they were incredibly wasteful and didn't take their chances. So we sort of gifted them the 2 goals. I don't knock the result at all. We were lucky it was only 2, really. But it's just those little naive mistakes that hopefully over the next few weeks and months will be gradually ironed out. But it's good fun. We're enjoying it. Every game's exciting, Gab. You certainly want to be watching Argyle this year.
Absolutely. I certainly want to see some of those home games where you've tonked Blackburn and tonked Norwich, and you seem to be able to really put it together on the day. Scored 3 past Middlesbrough, of course. I suppose in terms of ironing out those defensive errors, do you think a bit more tactical and personnel wise continuity is going to be important to that?
Possibly. I think last time I was on here, Gab, I was a big advocate of us playing 3 at the back. I thought it was always going to see us to our best. And I've sort of had to eat humble pie because actually we were a totally different proposition at Ellen Road on Saturday. We went to 4 at the back. So I think Shuey is determined that we're going to play 4-3-3. He spoke about it after Saturday that this 2-week break, the squad, when they come back in at the end of the week, those that aren't away on international duty, it's all about refining this new system. That's all they're going to focus on. They'll worry about Sunderland towards the back end the next week, but it's just about getting this system right. And you're right in what you're saying. At home, you can't knock it. I mean, the goals we're scoring at home are quite fantastic. The play at home is unbelievable. And we are in games away. The record's there. I can't come on here and defend it. We haven't won in, I think it's 8 we've played away now, haven't it? And we've picked up 3 points, I think, on the road. So I can't sit here and defend it. But in those 8 games, only 1 game has been decided by more than 1 goal. And that was Bristol City when we made wholesale changes to the side. So you're right. We've got to iron it out. I still think we've got to find the right combination at the back. I'm sort of doubling down on my Lewis Gibson's the best centre half that I've ever seen play for Argyle claim. So he's got to keep going and got to keep his performances up. And then there's still a question mark about who's going to go alongside him. Dan Scar had looked quite solid, and then it was back-to-back mistakes that led to goals in in the Ipswich game and the game before Ipswich, which slips my mind. So, oh no, it was the Middlesbrough game. He gave away the silly penalty, which sort of led to Middlesbrough fight back. So he's got to put them behind him. Pleguezuelo made a mistake on Saturday for one of Leeds' goals, so that's a bit of a kick in the teeth. Macaulay Gillespie come back, and then, well, I mean, we haven't seen him for a couple of weeks, and Galloway came back. It sounded like he was coming back fit, and then he picked up some other knock or an illness or something, which has set him back. And the one player who is going all right at the back at the moment, Gab's Mikael Miller. We seem to have found the key to keeping him fit.
As a standard right back in a back four?
No, left back. On the left
back.
side. Yeah, Kesler Hayden's now switched to the right.
Course, yeah,
Mikael Miller, actually, we've found the knack to actually get him to play more than one game in a week as well, which is quite
Do you know
key.
what? Him being in a back four and doing as well as he described there, Joe, really surprises me because when he's played previously as a wing back, but that's kind of as a very attack-minded wing back where he's kind of been a converted winger. So I would have thought if you're playing a back four system, he'd be more likely in the front three than in the back four. So that really surprised me.
If you want to try and get Barley Mumba out of that front three position, Gab, and tell him to go back and do Miller's job, then be my guest. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the two fullbacks are probably the area. I mean, Kesler Hayden has done very well for us, but again, he's just one of these young group that aren't overly experienced at the level. I keep going back to it. It's a crying shame that Saxon Early put in the performance of his life against Watford, and then a couple of days later picked up an injury. And we won't see him until the new year. So that's, you're right in what you're saying. The defensive issues are what needs to be sorted out, because I don't think anyone will disagree going forward. You know, we're as potent a threat as, I mean, we're not taking as many chances as we should, but I mean, the chances we're creating in games I didn't expect us to be as good going forward as we have been, I'll be honest. I thought we'd struggle to adapt, but we've just got to, you know, I think I counted in the last 6 games or something, we'd scored 17 and conceded 16. So if we could take the 10 off those conceded, I think we'll be all right. So keep the back door shut. If we have, in this next run of fixtures up to Christmas, if we can get a few 1-0s, I'll be the happiest man in the world.
Absolutely. Talk to me about Finn Azaz, Joe. Would you say he's been Argyle's best player so far?
I'd like to know how much he's going to cost. If anyone could answers on a postcard. Has he been our best player? That's tricky because I think there are 2 or 3 who have been very good. But the last month, 6 weeks, Azaz has gone to another level. I do remember being on the last time, and I was stressing the fact that he hadn't had a pre-season. He'd sort of been shut out a little bit by Villa. He hadn't played any games in pre-season, so it's taken him time to get fit for a start. And then, of course, he's got to adapt to this level. But that mini block of fixtures, he's just been a totally different player to what he was before. What surprises me is just how deep he's coming to pick the ball up and pull the strings. And he is scoring some brilliant goals.
He seems to be a risk taker, Joe, doesn't he? It's like
a risk taker.
Sorry, yeah, that's right. Because you've got other midfielders who I think do the simple things really well. But Azaz, for me, is the one where it's like sometimes it might not come off, but it's kind of worth it because he does really make things happen.
Yeah, I think we'd all sit here and love to have those players in our squads that for every 10 wonder balls they pull off, that one that they get right is the one you want to remember. You don't want to worry about the other 9. I think you're right, Gab. He is the risk taker in the midfield. Houghton's sort of the glue that keeps it all together. And then you've always got Randall or Kundal rotating either side of them, who are perhaps not as big risk takers as Az. But yeah, you're right. If he gets an opportunity to put in a 50-yard ball downfield or across field or have a shot, he's always going to take it on. And I'm delighted he's back. I would love to know how much he's going to cost, but I think it might be a little bit premature at the moment for those sorts of talks.
Oli, you were nodding your head when we mentioned Finn Azaz. Is he someone who's caught your eye this season?
Yeah, I mean, what a player he is. I mean, I really like him as well. Obviously, I think that's just backed up by what you've said there. He does seem to have kicked on so much in these last few weeks. And yeah, I think he's a real standout player. And I'm interested to see what it looks like for him in terms of the future, because obviously you can't see a breakthrough at Villa for anybody, never mind for somebody who's currently in the Championship. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting where he goes, whether he's able to stay at Plymouth, whether he moves somewhere else in the Championship. But how much do you think, when's Ryan Hardy's return? And do you think that with Azaz just sort of taking on, being a bit more of this creator and being better in the last few weeks, how much will that change some of your fortunes? Because obviously, as much as it is more positive, it's not been the best run of form over the last couple of months.
No, that's right. We're really inconsistent, and I mean, I'm glad we're really inconsistent, but being 19th and being inconsistent than anything else, than being a few places lower. So Hardy's an interesting one. So obviously he went down at Ipswich, and it was fairly apparent it was a serious one. The poor lad will probably never want to play at Portman Road again, because that's 2 of the last 3 visits he's done his hamstring there. So I'd imagine he's got a bit of a complex of the place. But he went down, and then Bundu went down in the second half innocuously with exactly the same injury. And the outlook was all doom and gloom afterwards. And then we hear this news on Thursday from Schumacher that they're both on the grass. They're both doing light jogging. And then at Ellen Road on Saturday, Ryan Hardy was doing 50-yard sprints from the halfway line to the byline during the warm-up. So it would appear that he's closer than we all thought. We all expected it would be mid to late December that he would be back fit. And he, look, it's no surprise that we just said there about Josh Coburn. We've only got 3 strikers. We've got Hardy, Bundu, and Wayne, and Wayne's trying. He's giving it a go, but he's perhaps not quite at the level just yet.
I think it was a lot expected of him. Sorry, Joe, just to interrupt there. I think because he hadn't played an awful lot in League One, to then all of a sudden expect him to do it in the Championship, which is a massive step up. Exactly. I think that was probably a bit of a stretch. Maybe. Do you think a loan spell in January is gonna work for him?
Hopefully, but we'd have to get at least 2 strikers in probably, Gab, before we're afforded the opportunity. Hopefully, his goal on Saturday will do him the world of good. I know it was just a tap in essentially, but he had to get there. He had to get on the end of it, and that's what he is. I think actually he's perhaps an upgrade on a Luke Jeffcott type striker. Well, he's definitely an upgrade on a Luke Jeffcott type striker, because he's a poacher. If you feed him the service in and around the 6-yard box, he will be on the end of it more often than not. I don't think he's a Hardy or a Bundu type who's going to come 30 yards deep to pick the ball up to create something. I think you've got to give him that service. And I think he would be better playing in a system with 2 up front, so that someone does the work, and not someone does the work and then he takes the credit. But you know what I mean? He's there to finish chances that others manufacture. So if we can get one of them back, by the sounds of it, Schumacher seemed a bit more hopeful we'll have Bundu back for Sunderland after the international break. I think that will be a real boost for everyone going into that game. I don't think we don't need any reminders of how good Sunderland are when they click. They're a very good side. So, and then we've got a really good run of fixtures coming up. I don't want to tempt fate, but we've got some games coming up with teams around us. And these are more the fixtures that are our bread and butter, essentially. I mean, the game after Swansea, we've got to go to Coventry on the Tuesday night. And at the moment with the league table the way it is, that's a massive game. I don't think Coventry will necessarily be down with us come the end of the season, although people keep laughing at me. I'm pretty confident we won't be too busy looking over our shoulder towards the second half of the season. So if we can get one of them back for Sunderland, great. I would imagine if I was a betting man, we'll certainly have them both back for Stoke City.
Jason.
I do. I'm not that much of a betting man, Gav. I'm not willing to compromise my career, but I certainly think we'll have one back for Sunderland, and then definitely both back for Stoke the Saturday after. So it's not as bad as we first feared.
Well, that sounds hopeful. Ollie, Joe, I think if Jordan Houghton and Finn Azaz, we assume are sort of shoe-ins for that midfield three. I guess my question to you would be who gets into Argyle's best midfield from the others, if you like.
I think it's horses for courses, Gab. I think we saw last season with Schumacher's team selection, a lot of it was horses for courses. He does like to rotate the squad. I think I'm a massive Luke Cundle fan. I've not doubled down as much as I have on Lewis Gibson like I have Luke Cundle, but he's similar to Azaz really. The last 3 or 4 games, he's been really, really good. And he was almost set an impossible task on Saturday at Ellen Road. He was asked to play a false 9, which I doubt he's been asked to do too many times, but he just doesn't stop running, and he's a little terrier type. And Adam Randall will just run himself into the ground. Everyone knows his qualities. He's very good. He's great with a set piece. Corners, free kicks. Randall's very good with them. He's obviously a hometown boy, so everyone wants Randall to be the man to be in that midfield. But I do think certainly until January, if they're planning on bringing somebody in, I certainly see a fair bit of just rotating the two of them depending on the opposition, what their strengths are. I'd say they're pretty evenly matched, the two of them, and I don't think it really makes a huge difference to the squad going forward or defensively as to which one of the two plays that position. So it's a nice position to be in, to be honest.
Certainly. Do you want to say something, Ollie? You look like you.
I'm just agreeing. I think for me, Luke Cundle is one of the standouts of sort of the other options that are in there. I think he's had a low key, I think he's had a really good season as well so far. I was looking at some of his stats. I think it's 0.8 goal or assist per 90 so far this year. I know a lot of that is off the bench, but obviously he is having an impact at this level. I think he's stepped up really well. I do like him, and I think he's going to be a really important player as the season goes on for Plymouth. And I know horses for courses, and it is really important that you do make sure that team selection, and obviously Stephen Schumacher's a fantastic manager, and so he knows that better than I do. But I just thought it's worth saying that I do think that's the one for me. I think Cundle is a really key player. I really like him.
Absolutely. Joe, in terms of Argyle's chances, you seem to have this sort of general theme, and I am generalising a little bit here, but it's a case of, getting the odd point here and there and sort of losing narrowly by the odd goal. And then you have this massive spike where it's like you win 6-2 against Norwich, or you win 3-0 against Blackburn. I'm sure there was another home game where you took someone 3-1 as well. So it's like you've got the potential in you to go on a mad goal scoring spree, but you only see that occasionally. And I just feel like, do you want just a little bit more defensive consistency, or I don't even know if a little bit more of a case of ticking the points over sort of at a steadier rate, rather than feeling like there could be a massive win coming somewhere around the corner, but you don't quite know when that's going to be?
So I've a little bit of a carefree, sort of stress-free attitude towards this season because of the size of the teams, etc., that we're going up against.
Sure.
And I promise you, get a totally different answer to what I'm going to give if you ask one of the coaching staff. The answer to that, what you've just asked me, Gab, is no. I'm really enjoying this roller coaster of end-to-end games, brilliant entertainment. And those big wins you reference, I think Oli mouthed it there. It was Wednesday was the other win that you'd forgot about. If we can, I'm not saying that, lose 6, beat somebody 6-2, lose 5, beat somebody 3-0. That's not sustainable, and it won't keep us in the division.
Sure.
But while we have a bit of credit in the bank, and I do feel like we've got it, and while our heads are still above water, let the entertainment keep coming, because it is so much fun watching Argyle go forward. And we are in a different position now. I'm not knocking Connor Hazard, because I thought he did a very good job when he was in goal. And if something happens again to Michael Cooper, I've no problems whatsoever with him going back in there.
He's a great shot stopper,
different,
isn't he, Connor Hazard?
Yeah, exactly. And it is different now having Cooper back there. You saw its first game back against West Brom. the whole defense just looked a totally different unit with Cooper behind them. It's nothing against Hazard, but it was tried and tested. People knew about Cooper's strengths. And, you know, having him there is a big bonus. But yeah, just look, I said, I think it was the West Brom game, actually. I said I'd be the happiest man in the world at 5 o'clock if we got a 0-0 that first game back after the international break. Lo and behold, it was 0-0. I was delighted because we got that clean sheet. We'd sort of stopped the rot of, because we were really open at the back before the break. I do sort of feel like, although we conceded a load of chances against Leeds, they were very wasteful. Cooper had to make a couple of saves, but it wasn't do or die throwing bodies in front of it. There were a lot of shots going wide and over the bar. So I do feel like there is a little run coming, perhaps, where we will stem the tide, if you like. And I don't think we have to worry going forward that we're not going to keep scoring, because we are just creating chance after chance every week. I mean, we had a golden chance at 0-0 on Saturday. And didn't take it. So I'm enjoying it, stress-free. Don't get me wrong, there is going to come a point, I'm not naive, there is going to come a point in a few weeks' time, you know, or after Christmas, whenever it is, where I will be sat there thinking, oh, God, I've talked myself into a hole here. Where's the next wing coming from and all of that? But, you know, this side is just such a joy to watch. And they're playing carefree football. Reputations, don't fear them. You know, long may it continue. And as I said, I've sort of nailed my colours to the mast now. We've got a run of games coming up before Christmas. Take Leicester out. Forget Leicester. We got to play them, but forget that one. You know, there's a real good run of games, particularly at home, that might just give us a bit more credit in the bank going into January. So it's a big sort of 6 weeks coming up to Christmas, which I don't want to say will shape the season, but it will certainly shape the board's mentality towards the January transfer window, I think.
Absolutely. Oli, I suppose what works in Argyle's favour is that at the moment, Huddersfield seem to be conceding a lot of goals. Sheffield Wednesday are a club in crisis. QPR, you argue, are in a similar position, although there's some hope for them and Wednesday with new managers. And there's another team, I think, in the bottom who I've not mentioned that are really struggling as well. That's
Rotherham.
convenient. That's conveniently. So
forgotten them conveniently,
yes,
given that we're doing a big part on them, like in that 2 minutes time.
Oh yeah, them, yeah. So do you think that kind of works a little bit in their favour, that there's 4 teams there that are kind of struggling a bit?
Yeah, it does. And I think it gives you that room to breathe, because I do think when you look at the league table, there's obviously, you feel comfortable in the gap to that bottom 3 as it stands at the moment. You know, even Huddersfield, who, you know, we're flagging up as being a risk, you know, they've got injury problems, they're not playing well at the moment. Even they'll still be thinking, we've still got a bit of a gap. Just breathe, be calm. And so I think with the bottom 3 the way they are, that does take some of that pressure off. I think a lot of what was being reflected from Joe is that, you know, it was a lot of, I'm not that stressed at the moment. I'm feeling that calmness. And it comes because of the level that the current bottom 3 are showing. I do think there'll be a turnaround at some point. I do think all of those bottom 3 will start picking up points at some point. I'm expecting to see improvements from all of them with new managers. Obviously, we've already seen it in, not necessarily in results, but in performances for Wednesday. I think we will see it running through Rotherham and QPR when they're embedded. So I do think it will get more stressful, but I do like to hear that it's sort of been an enjoyable return. Because I do think as well, that's one of the things that I'm learning it the hard way, that sometimes you get promoted and it's the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. And so I do think it's quite nice to hear that you've at least had some time to enjoy it without the stress.
It's like you can have a reward for being promoted. It's not like,
it'd be nice. You get punished for it most of the time.
Yeah.
Well, what I will say, Gab, just very quickly, and I do stress this, and perhaps it's not totally backed up on a more national scale, but I really do believe that we are a better side than our points return suggests that we've got this year. Because I do think in, you know, 2 or 3 of the games, you know, I mean, Preston away, we were 2-0 down in no time at all. And that was then a real uphill task, and we stuck to it. We gave them constant problems second half. We gave Leeds a minor little wobble with 5 minutes to go on Saturday. We're in these games. You know, I mean, we had Middlesbrough. I mean, first half against Middlesbrough, I thought we were outstanding. You know, it's games like this. We blew Sheffield Wednesday away. We had a great day against Norwich. You know, we are banging these games. We've got points at Watford and West Brom, which now I know Watford had a really tricky start, but they've started to fire now, and those points look like really good points, and they were clean sheets as well. You know, the win against Blackburn as well. So I do think that whilst I agree with what Ollie's saying, that, you know, all those 4 teams have now changed their manager, or in Rotherham's case, will appoint a new manager, or perhaps a returning one if you believe the newspaper press. But we are going to find ourselves in a position where those 4 teams will have a lift, because surely it's going to happen. They can't all just continue being basket cases on the field.
Yeah.
So there
It
is going to
doesn't
come a
work
point
like
where
that, does it? The 4 struggling teams just stay struggling for the rest of the season.
Exactly.
And one or two of them
and
search.
And I am pretty confident that unless something goes seriously wrong at Everton, that Schumacher will be with us all season. There's absolutely no chance whatsoever that the football club will pull the trigger with him. So we're going to have to adapt that way. We're going to have to continue our performances going forward. But I just feel like, I'm not saying that we should have 15 points more than we've got, but I think it's 16 points after 16 games we're on at the moment, if my memory serves me right. So I do think we're perhaps more value for 3 or 4 more points than that. And obviously, if we do have those 3 or 4 more points, then it looks a totally different situation than what it currently is. So just a little note there that I do think we are a little bit better than 16 points. But hey, look, a point a game, 48 point or 46 points, whatever it is at the end of the season, might just about be enough to keep us in the division. So you know, if we keep going on that trend, then we'll be all right.
You're saying 48 games because you think you'll be in the playoffs. That's what it is.
Exactly. You never know, Gav. You never know.
Absolutely. Listen, Joe, thanks so much for your time. Absolutely adore you, Steph, on Argyle Life. So thanks for talking to us, and good luck to the Green Army for the rest of the season, mate.
No problem. Cheers, gents.
Cheers.
Man.
Delighted to bring in our final guest, which is Matt Lax from the New York Talk podcast of Rotherham United. Good evening, Max. How are you, mate?
As long as we don't talk about football, I'll be absolutely fine, mate.
I've got some bad news. We are talking about football. Let's first of all, I think, before we get into ranking the candidates for the next Rotherham United job, I just wanted to sort of reflect on Matt Taylor's tenure with you, Matt. What did you make of the decision that the board came to?
I think in the end, it's the right decision. I think the writing was on the wall when we lost to Wednesday. The manner of it wasn't the 2-0 loss; it was the manner of the 2-0 loss. And all the fans, all the fans that didn't really take to him in the first place went to the extreme and Taylor out straight. And the guys who were on the fence went that way as well. And the guys who supported him sort of went to the unsure side. We needed to see something after that Wednesday game, and we didn't. We drew against QPR and we didn't play particularly well. The Ipswich game was a good point. It's difficult to judge against Ipswich because they're obviously a very, very good team. And then we all know what happened at Watford. That was almost as bad as the Wednesday game against a much better team than Sheffield Wednesday. So it's a shame. I think he's been very, very unlucky with injuries. And I think he's been unlucky with a few refereeing decisions early in the season. He might have had 3 or 4 more points had certain things gone our way. But the manner of the performances and the manner of the lack of improvement was the concern. The players, whatever he was asking the players to do or trying to inspire the players to do, they were not reacting to it. And to not react after the Sheffield Wednesday game says there's never going to be a reaction. If you're not going to react against your relegation rival and your big local rival, when are you going to ever react? He may have well turned it around. I think he's an excellent manager. I think he, given a unlimited amount of time, he probably would have done. But we had to make a change. I think I feel sorry for him because I think he's a great guy and everything else. But I do think it was sadly the right time had we had another manager lined up.
It's an interesting one because I think from my perspective, I completely get that. And I think as well, the manner of the performance against Wednesday, obviously, we all saw that. And it was as against a team that had no confidence, hadn't scored in more than 600 minutes, had got no wins on the board. The manner of that performance obviously was really, really disappointing. And so I can see how that really expedites the feeling of losing patience, of all the fans now starting to turn. But I suppose for me, where I suppose is a question from the outside is expectations for the season were probably not too dissimilar to where you are right now. Do you feel as though if we looked at the season and just take away the one Wednesday performance, do you think you would have done it without that? Do you think that was the nail in his coffin and that actually around that is just probably about par for the course? And what do you expect from a new manager? Are you saying that they should keep you up, or are you expecting just a better level of performance and competition?
I think it's a mixture. It's a few different things. I would say that, first of all, the away performance in general is a mystery to everybody. And that's something else that came from all Matt Taylor's away press conferences and pre-match press conferences, was that he didn't seem to understand the problem. And you're 22 games without a win away from home, and he didn't explain, certainly in the press, he didn't explain his understanding of the problem. We watch it as fans thinking, we don't understand why this is so different. The home form isn't sparkling, but it's better. The difference was just crazy. It doesn't look like the same set of players. He's sort of coming up with excuse about the pitch being bigger away from home and things like that, and you're sort of thinking, no, don't use that as an excuse. So things like that did start grating on people. It's also the frustration of how good we've been. Against Norwich, we were so good. Against Leicester, we were good. Against Coventry for a little bit, even parts against Ipswich. So we can be really, really good. And that makes the bad performance even more frustrating, because it doesn't make sense why that performance is in there. Why can't we see it a little bit more? I think we are in a relegation battle. We knew that was always going to, because Matt Taylor said at the end of last season that we're going to be in a relegation battle again. But I think we were losing at the path of what we were trying to do. I couldn't tell you what Matt Taylor's style of play was this season. I genuinely couldn't work it out from game to game. It was changing formation from game to game. It was just all a bit of a mess. I just think he got lost in trying to do too much at once. He's trying to improve the stuff behind the scenes. He's trying to improve the players. Somebody mentioned our podcast. He was trying to run before he can ball. Somebody mentioned, and it really was that kind of thing. He was just trying too much at once, where he needed to stick to what makes teams. If you're in a relegation, you need that fight, you need that battle, you need that pressure. We lost all that, especially away from home, and I think that's one of the reasons we just couldn't see a way out of it. And I think that's probably why the trigger's been pulled. Add into that the Watford result and the Wednesday result as well.
So obviously that leaves the Millers needing a new manager. We've each ranked our from 5 different candidates who we think the next manager should be. And the 5 candidates that I've offered or put forward to both of you is Chris Wilder, Gary Rowett, Neil Warnock, David Artell, and Steve Evans. Ollie, I'm going to start with you because you've gone with Neil Warnock. Chris Wilder as your number 1. Obviously, the Blades legend. I just wondered if you could make your case for Wilder for us.
Yeah, I just want us to stop talking about hiring him, and so he's going to go somewhere. It might as well be Rotherham. No, I think what I see in Wilder, and it'll be interesting to see sort of what that perspective is, because for me, there's a lot of candidates there that are being talked about that are go-back candidates. Obviously, Evans has been there before. Warnock has been there before. And for all the success that they've brought, I do think that there's a time where if, as a club, you're always looking back, you're never really going to be able to progress. I feel like Wilder has been waiting for a project that's really going to work for him. I think, obviously, he'd gone in to Watford in quite difficult circumstances and it's not paid off. I think at Middlesbrough, we saw an immediate impact of what he can do. And then we saw the downturn of him maybe not quite connecting with their squad. But I think a local club, a Yorkshire club, somebody that he will understand. I think it's a fan base who he will very quickly get on side. I think he'll be passionate and I think the Rotherham fans would love him. I think he's a similar kind of character to Evans and Warnock, who've been successful in the past, but he brings a fresher, a new formation. You'll know exactly what he's trying to do. There'll be no issues with style of play or we're not quite sure what we're trying to figure out. There will be a plan from day one. And it's been successful in the Championship before. And obviously, I'm always going to go to bat for Chris Wilder because I think he's a fantastic manager. I think he's a fantastic man manager. And I think the type of squad that Rotherham has got, he's a really, really good candidate to get the most out of him.
Chris Wilder then, Matt, what are you thinking?
I would take Chris Wilder in a heartbeat. I think everything Ollie's just said it. I think his improvement on somebody like Steve Evans. He played for the club back in the 90s. Alan Neil will probably come with him again, play for the club. and even managed the club in 2006 or something stupid like that. So they would just, it feels like a really good fit. The question is, there's a couple of questions for me. Where is Wilder in his career? The money's an issue. It was when he was at Boro.
Location, though, I think. Sorry to just jump in there, but location, I think, is a significant thing because he's currently. I understand he's currently living in Yorkshire, so it would mean that he wouldn't have to relocate or have a separate base like he did for Watford. Where so that would that counterbalance some of the financial stuff.
I would have thought so. Possibly. Yeah, I would agree. When he was at Boro, he did very well, and then he started getting the link to Burnley and started, from what we all read, he was one pushing that move. And then I've got a question: anybody that takes a Watford job, to be honest with you. Yeah. So I wonder where his motivation was. Was it just a cash thing and things like that? So I wonder where he is at his career, and if he has a good 3 months with us, if another job comes along, is he then going to jump at that because that's where he is in his career? He wants to move on. So there are those issues, and where he is, obviously, cash is a big thing as well. But I think if Chris Wilder was available and he was interested, you'd be stupid not to go and take him up on that offer because he's better than Rotherham United. So he's shown that he's better than Rotherham United. So if he can drag us up to his level and maybe push us on to be a comfortable championship, well, that would be exceptional. But I don't see it as realistic. But I would take it tomorrow if it was announced. I'd be really happy about that.
So I suppose, Matt, your top realistic target is Neil Warnock. This is someone who, in his last four championship attempts, has kept a club up at this level, and one of those was with Rotherham in 2016. Matt, is that a big part of your thinking when putting Neil Warnock forward?
Yeah, you just trust him. You just put Warnock in any sort of club, and then it's almost any position in the EFL, and he'd probably do a job. I think we've got a good group of players who are good. They are good at what they do. They just need somebody to drag that out of them. And Neil Warnock is the kind of guy who would do that. He's ultra short term. You know, if he I don't think he's going to come in because I think he's waiting, but he would be at best until the end of the season. And then what happened last time with Warnock is he came in and kept us up in incredible fashion, and then left us, and we got Alan Stubbs in, which was a complete disaster. So it's really, really short term. But with the Sky deal next year, I think there is almost a panic to stay up to get that extra bit of cash, which next season could be massive for us. He would probably keep us up. If he came in, I would be very confident that he would keep us up over most of the candidates. But then, like I say, it's just such short-term appointment that would concern me. That's the downside to him.
So I'm going to put forward my candidate, which is different to both of yours, and feel free to chip in on this, either of you, is Gary Rowett, because this is someone who's delivered a real defensive consistency. I think in 36% of his games as Millwall manager, they've kept a clean sheet. And I think if Rotherham could have those sorts of defensive foundations, I think that would make a massive difference. And I think when you're in a relegation dogfight, you know, getting clean sheets are absolute gold, because they give you that opportunity to steadily build up the table. And you know, if you don't keep a clean sheet, you might concede one, and it's all that sort of thing where you can just gradually build up the points, and you don't necessarily have to be at your best in possession, because I think you can get across a message that's very quickly and very clearly, and just gradually build confidence from there. I think he's proven in the past to be a really good, consistent, solid championship manager. So Gary Rowett would be my pick.
Yeah, I can see that. I do think he's a good manager. I like him. I think you're right about his defensive organisation. I think he's a zeros and ones manager, as I refer to it. And I think that's really key if you're going to be in a relegation battle. He would be a high choice for me because I think he gives you a bit more long-term sustainability as well. You know, we talked about Warnock, and I'm going to put Steve Evans in this exact same bolt. I think if you're taking those on, you're taking them on for an immediate improvement for 6 months. I don't think you're building a long-term anything with either of those two candidates. And so I think if you want to go down that route, if you want to just secure the money for next season when the Sky deal comes in and then reevaluate in the summer, I think that's obviously a logistical way to go. It makes sense. But you can see what can happen, like Huddersfield we saw this season, where you can hire your short-term candidate who does a great job. Everybody gets carried away and you go, oh, yeah, we'll keep him. Oh, actually, why have we kept him? And then you're making a change and then you end up in a bit of a rut and a problem. So I do think, personally, I think Rowett was down as my second choice. I like him. I think he'd be a really good option. I think he would improve this squad. I don't think he gives you necessarily the guarantee of staying in the division that maybe we think some of the others does. But I think long term, he would be a really sensible, really good manager to move Rotherham forward for the next 5 years rather than for the next 6 months.
I suppose Gary Rowett would certainly, I think, solidify things. Matt, is there a world in which Rotherham think a little bit longer term here and maybe go down a more developmental route? One of the names that I've put into the hat was David Artell, who played for Rotherham United previously, had done brilliantly in 5 of his 6 full seasons at Crewe Alexandra. Do you think that there's cause for the club to look at a more sort of developmental route?
This time around, I don't think so. I think we tried. I think that was the plan last year. We went for Matt Taylor and originally met for Mark Bonner as well. So I think that was the plan last year. He likes to mix it up, does Tony Stewart. He doesn't always go for the same ones over and over again. Went for Stubbs and went Warnock, then Stubbs and Redfern before that. So there's always an interchanging of them. I do think this Sky deal next year, I think is probably going to play a huge part in any decision that he makes. Understandably, sure. The amount of money for a club that sort of runs such a tight ship. That secures our future for a couple of years at this level potentially. I don't think David Artell was a very good player. I think fans maybe expect. We all saw how it ended at Crewe, and that's going to taint everybody's opinion because it was a bad ending. He's been excellent in League Two. He did okay at League One, not more than okay.
The first season got them into the top half of League One on the lowest budget, playing great football.
I don't think we saw at Crewe what type of football he wants to play. I don't think we've got the players to do that. So if we came in with that type of identity, Sean Morrison's not going to play that, playing out from the back kind of football. Sure. So it doesn't necessarily suit us. So I think it will be a relatively short term. I think Rowett or something like that, or even Wilder. The idea behind those two would be a more longer term thing. For a long term thing, those are the two I would sort of say are the more sensible ones. I think more popular probably.
Sure, yeah. I think Gary Rowett would be a great appointment, or Chris Wilder, certainly, because I think either of those appointments would be, I think they'd make you feel more confident for the short term, but they'd also, give you the opportunity to build something. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Anyone else that we haven't mentioned from the list, Matt, that you've kind of got your eye on?
Well, Steve Evans is the current favourite, and this is quite an interesting one. This is completely split fans. Down in Harthers, you've got the fans. He obviously, we all know he did a great job at us in the first place, but it feels like a step backwards, to be honest with you. He kept us up in one season and then got sacked quite early in the next season due to a potential falling out. The job he's doing at Stevenage is amazing. It's such a good job he's doing at Stevenage. I'm really happy to see him doing really, really well, but it doesn't feel right for him to come back. And like I mentioned with his fan base, the fans have really strong opinions. You're either loving him and wanting him to come back tomorrow, or you're hating it and the idea repulses you almost. So if he came in, you've already got this divide in the fans. And when you get a new manager, that's sort of against especially how the opponents have been recently. We need somebody who's going to pull everybody together. Tony Stewart's come out today and said it's unlikely we'll have an appointment in for the Leeds game, which has blown my mind, to be honest with you, because you sack somebody in an international break to give them time to work with them. We're coming to a Christmas period. How chaotic is that going to be? If you get a new manager, he's got no time to work with them. I'm concerned now, having read the interview he's done with Paul Davis, local journal, I am concerned that we're not going to get this done quickly. We needed a relatively quickly appointment for me. I'm worried now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see. Personally, I can't see Steve Evans leaving Stevenage. I feel like he has a really strong connection there, and I think he's onto a good thing. And I also feel like with Steve Evans, I don't know what either of you think about this, but I often feel like he prefers to. He's often happier to drop down a level to become a big fish in a small pond and be one of those teams that's chasing promotion than stay too long in at a club that's maybe struggling near the bottom, because I don't think that seems to be how he likes to operate. So personally, I can't see it being Steve Evans, but we'll see. I think we've come up with some good candidates. Matt, thanks so much for your time. Love your stuff on the New York Talk podcast. So thanks for talking to us, mate.
No, it's cheers for having us on, boys.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks as always to my lovely co-host Oli Mann from the Sheff United Way. Thanks to you at home for watching, and to all our guests. And we'll see you again next week.